GGRC.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of GGRC. And today I have two very special guests with me. I have two of my chums from Video Chums with me. We have AJ and we have Trey. AJ, how you doing today, buddy?
Hello. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Not too bad. Trey, how are you?
I'm fantastic today. Can't complain too much.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Guys, today we're gathered here to talk about gaming in the 90s.
90s, yay!
So turn
Everybody
off the
likes the
video
90s,
right
right?
now.
Yeah.
Except for
turn it
people
off.
in the 80s.
People love the... Can you love the 80s and the 90s, or is that not allowed?
No, it's allowed. It's just that people from the 80s tend not to like the 90s for some reason. I don't know why.
Huh.
What do you mean
It's
from the
apparent.
80s? Like born in the
Oh,
80s?
Who prospered in the 80s, I guess you might say. They never seem to like the 90s, and I don't know why. Maybe because, that's where they started hitting middle age. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, 80s, you have Knight Rider, you got Care Bears, and
You got Ronald Reagan and all that.
you got,
baggage.
Reaganomics.
Synth pop bands.
Synth pop bands, new wave, you
my
got all
God.
that. But the 90s, I mean, you got Kurt Cobain and hip hop, and you got SNES, and
SNES,
both-
Sega Genesis, N64, Game Boy, the PlayStation, the Dreamcast.
there's so much to
all-
talk about.
Yeah.
Virtual
God.
Boy.
What?
That's the
sure.
whole thing.
The what?
The,
The what now?
Uh,
Let's
vir-
Google this real
virtual,
quick.
Virtual Boy?
you're talking about the thing that's on the Wii, the Virtual Console.
No, the Virtual
No,
Boy.
it's a thing. The Virtual Boy, according to Wikipedia, it was. Oh, I know what this thing is. Okay, that came out in '95.
Yeah.
Oh my God! It came out on my birthday in North America. How did I not know this?
I didn't know we were going to bring up the Virtual Boy, honestly.
Let's just talk
the biggest
just
flop.
about the Virtual Boy this whole podcast. Nothing else.
Oh, no.
Gaming
Oh,
in the
no.
90s was all about Virtual Boy. No one cares
Something
about
that
anything else.
literally was discontinued 2 years after it was released. No, a year after it was released.
Yeah.
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 Like Link to the Past and Super Metroid and Symphony of the Night and yeah, that's garbage. What's this
Yeah,
place?
yeah,
of
they were
Virtual
fine,
Boy?
but Virtual Boy was where that shit was at.
Yeah,
Right. Mario Clash, right?
yep. And that other thing.
And the other game that was on it.
Yeah, those two games that were released. There's some good games.
It's kind of strange though how VR is coming back. That's taking some inspiration from that.
Yeah, minus the retinal bleeding and such. But
I mean, I'm just saying that whenever I get into a one of the a PSVR headset, I might not get retinal bleeding and all that, but I do project vomit everywhere.
oh,
Yeah,
so it's a win-win, really.
it's a very similar situation.
It's a nice way to diet, I guess, too.
Oh, I'm 6'3" and I weigh 180 pounds. I don't need a diet.
Nice.
Yeah, so I need to
Humble
gain weight.
brag.
Say what?
Hashtag
Humble brag? No, I'm underweight.
Oh wait,
Hey, that's where everybody wants to be, man.
This is the 90s. I should say number sign, humble brag.
Yep.
Pound sign.
Oh my
Pound
God.
sign,
sign.
humble brag.
Pu-
Nobody even knows what I'm talking about anymore.
Nope, I have no idea.
All
I'm
right.
there with you. I'm old, so I understand.
Well,
Um,
I was gonna say, so I was born in 1990, so one of the first games that I ever played, of course, was obviously in the middle of the 90s, and that was Sonic 2 on the Sega Genesis.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah.
these youngins.
Well, how old are you
Arguably,
guys?
one of the best Sonics.
Probably
man.
that Sonic.
Yeah, it's damn good. Besides Sonic Mania, probably the damn best
I would
Sonic
agree with
game,
that, yeah.
I would say. Yeah. But anyway, as far as age goes, let's just say I'm nearing 4-0. I'll just say that.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Yep.
I was born in 85.
Okay.
Oh,
Math.
For some reason, I thought you guys were closer to my age than that. I don't know why.
Well, with the internet, we can be.
This is true. Just take a look at one of those pictures, crop it a bit, and you'll look like you're 10 years younger.
So I was born in '83, so I was here for a lot of the '90s stuff. I remember the majority of it. Also, I should probably say this to the audience listening right now. We don't really have an outline for this, so we're just going to talk randomly about '90s memories and such. I guess here, but
Basically,
yeah, basically. But the '90s, as AJ already pointed out, so many great consoles, so many great games. I don't even know where to start, but I will say, I guess any place you could start here would be good. Would be with the Game Gear. Do you guys play that?
Yeah, my sister had one. And I remember it eating up batteries like immediately.
Oh yeah.
So we got the power adapter and then played. What did we have? Like Sonic and Columns and some Ren and Stimpy game. That's 90s. Ren and Stimpy.
I used to play a lot of sports games on there too. I think Joe Montana football back then was a big one. Yeah, I collected a lot of games on the Game Gear. That was my console of choice for a while there. We traveled a lot when I was a kid, so we had rechargeable batteries, so it wasn't too big of a deal. But yes, if batteries ever like even were in the same in the vicinity of a Game Gear, they would just start draining.
They were doomed.
Basically it.
Yeah,
but
I played on the
think
Game Boy a lot. Original Game Boy.
Okay.
Yeah. What were you saying? Something? I cut you off.
Oh, I just said I just agreed. But for me, it was like I said.
All right.
But didn't the Game Boy come out in the '80s? Does that count?
It came out in '89, I think, didn't it?
Close
enough.
To Google.
The '80s.
Oh, it's close enough.
I know.
Oh my god. I do kind of. I'm not gonna lie. I do kind of wish that the DS was actually called the Nintendo Game Boy DS. Just because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would make
I don't see why not.
Because
the Nintendo Game Boy Switch.
I was gonna say he was right. It came out in '89, so technically it is not a '90s console.
Oh boy! But everybody played it in the '90s.
This is true.
That's true.
This is gaming in the '90s. So one
All
thing.
right, fine. We'll allow it. Jeez.
One thing that was awesome about the '90s and video games is TV shows with video games on them.
Yeah.
You don't really get that anymore.
That's because they're so expensive to license these days. Back then, they were like pennies on the dollar, basically, or whatever.
I mean, like shows where people would play games and review them and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
What kind of? Yeah, I don't know what kind of shows that you get there in the States. I'm from Canada, in case our listener doesn't know that.
No, I was talking
sign, humble brag.
I was talking more like seeing people play certain games on like television shows and things like that. That's what I thought you were talking about.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Like the shows that I remember were we had this show, Video and Arcade Top 10, where they would have like 4 kids play a NES or Super NES game, and they would just be staring at the screens, just playing these games. And then the host would have to like be overly enthusiastic to make up for their brain dead. And then at the end of the episode, they would win some cheap prize or something, and they would have like a top 10 segment and have codes and secrets that you could try out and all this. Yeah, that show was great. I watched it like every day. Did you have anything like that in the United States of America?
G4, I was gonna say, the first thing that comes to my mind would be like stuff that popped on G4, but that was more like the 2000s, really.
But we did have Nick Arcade in the '90s, which was pretty amazing.
I vaguely remember that, but I was more of a Cartoon Network guy.
Okay, fair enough. Nick Arcade, though, oh man, Nick Arcade was like, here's some crappily made Flash-looking games, that we created. and they would put the kids on this green screen, and they had to like jump and duck and
Oh,
get
so it
away from
wasn't.
whatever enemies were.
It was like a game show then that they would make games specifically for.
So it was a game show where they did that, but they did also have arcade games on it too. I remember it's the first time that I saw the what is the arcade game with the monkey that spits? Toki, is that right?
I
Yeah,
had no idea. Oh,
yeah,
It's the
Toki.
first time I saw that, so I was like, "Oh wow, that game looks great, looks fun." But these kids had to like hit a certain high score or whatever to get the the grand prize at the end. I was like, "Man, this game seems hard," and the kid didn't get anywhere near what the high score was supposed to be.
So they
But
played actual games on it then, like actual games you could
they did
buy at home.
both.
Oh, they did both.
Yeah,
I
they
see.
okay.
yeah.
That
So they did
sounds
these
pretty
real cheesy
interesting.
Nickelodeon green screen things, but they had real arcade games too, which was a lot of fun. Yeah, I recommend looking it up on YouTube if you never watched it because it's good cheesy '90s game show stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we have video and arcade top 10. What was that called? Nick Arcade?
Nick Arcade,
Is that what that's what it is?
I believe that is the name.
Hmm.
It's short for Nickelodeon Arcade.
And then another
Really?
show that what?
Really?
Oh,
Who would have thought?
yeah,
I had
that's
no
pretty
idea.
interesting.
On
Uh,
the Nickelodeon network.
Ooh, well, that's still around actually, so I can't make fun of that.
Is it still around?
Nickelodeon is definitely still around.
Okay.
I think mostly it just plays SpongeBob reruns these days, but whatever.
Okay. So it's a husk of its former self.
I don't really watch TV all that much anymore, so I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah, same here. Guilty. Another show I remember, I do not remember the name of it. There was another game show where these kids had to play games against each other and beat them, beat their opponents in these different games. But at the very end of the game, or rather the show, they got to go on this like big spree where they tried to grab as many games as they could and throw them down this slide. And at the end of the slide, whatever came with them at the end of the slide, they got to keep.
Nice.
And that was always super exciting because the host would walk up and he'd be like, like Trevor just came down the slide. He got himself a Game Boy, a copy of Ren and Stimpy on Game Boy. Just he would go
you
through
know,
every single thing.
Just
that
like
sounds a
too
lot
much.
like video and arcade top 10 actually.
Oh, it
Um,
might be similar.
Because I think
It's
at the end
might
of
be-
that show they would reach into a bag and pull out a game, and then they would win that game.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it might have been like a rip off of that
It probably was.
Probably was.
cheap Canadian knockoff.
Might have been like some kind of subsidiary or whatever. You never know.
Yeah. Another show that was great was Electric Playground. Yeah, it was basically news, interviews, and reviews of all the latest games, and it was hosted by Victor Lucas, who runs his own YouTube channel now. So, uh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, that was on since 1995, I think, and he
Wow.
went to the very first E3. That was like on the first episode ever was the first E3. Like that's
Oh,
awesome.
that's so cool.
Yeah, you could actually
Yeah.
watch it on YouTube. I think his channel is epn.tv. So that his show was on from 95 all the way up to, I think, 2015. I'm just looking it up. This
It's a
one's
long stretch.
yeah, it is.
No, it's cool. It's cool that you mentioned Victor Lucas because I actually found his YouTube channel, but I wasn't familiar with him at all. But I had heard that he was a former host in Canada. So
Yeah, well, he actually hosted Judgment Day in the States with Tommy Tallarico for a short while,
okay,
and
yeah.
they reviewed games on it. We never got that here, but that was like the American version of the show. So I don't know if you heard of that. But yeah,
What was it called again?
Judgment Day.
Judgment Day. No, I
I
don't
think
think
it was
so.
called Judgment Day. But yeah, like EP Daily, which is what it was renamed to, ran all the way up till the end of 2015. But yeah, I guess there's like TV networks aren't interested in video game shows anymore, so now he just
It's
does
the kind.
everything on YouTube.
I was gonna say, it's just like
Mhm.
it's a lot easier than just to, get some someone basically just to do, like you said, that stuff on YouTube. That kind of stuff, like it costs a lot of money to hire the actors, the hosts, the prizes, and everything like that. And there's just not really too many people out there who are just gonna sit down and watch that stuff. And maybe you could do it with kids or whatever, but more than likely they're just gonna watch YouTubers anyway.
Yeah. Well, this show wasn't like aimed towards kids. This didn't have like contests in it. It wasn't like game show or anything. It was more like news and reviews and interviews and all that.
Mhm.
There was a lot of big people on Electric Playground over the years, like a lot of big correspondents. I think Jeff Keighley, is that his name? I think he was on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that his name?
Well,
Jeff Keighley.
I always want to call him Knightley because it looks like that, but it's not. It's Keighley,
okay.
right?
I get you. I was like, this guy who's like super huge in the industry. Yeah, I think that's his name.
I don't know. I don't keep up with the industry. Why would
Says
I
the
do
guy
that?
who runs a video game review site.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just joking. And Jade Raymond, who's the who was at Ubisoft, I think she was a host on the show as well. Yeah, there's
Cool.
some pretty big people on there over the years.
I'm looking at this guy just to make sure I know who you're talking about. Canadian journalist. Just because I can't remember, because this guy looks very familiar to me, but I can't figure out where I know him from.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like I may have seen him on G4 before, but I'm not sure.
I remember where I saw this guy at. The thing that pops up into my head when I think of this guy is that like one like Halo 4 Doritos Mountain Dew thing he had. Like he was like doing an interview or something like that, where he was just like sitting in front of, with like to his like left with like a bunch of bottles of Game Fuel Mountain Dew, a thing of Doritos, and to his right was like a Master Chief poster. That's where I best know that guy from.
That was
That
a
is
commercial,
sad.
did you say?
No, it was like this weird like promo he was doing about gamer journalism, and yet it had that weird thing. He just looked like he was just dead inside. He had this blank stare on his face. I will. I'm going to send you the link to this later because it's like it's unreal. He just has no energy or no passion in it at all, and he's surrounded by fucking Doritos. And like we're talking about the '90s. Why are we talking about the early 2010s? Jeez Louise.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like him at all. He's always has good energy.
If it's the person I'm thinking of, like
Yeah.
I guess just that day
Maybe
he
he
just
was
wasn't
doing
feeling it.
something against his will.
Maybe because
Something he was contractually obligated.
yeah, I recall he also um, basically he just like happily called out Konami for not letting Kojima come in to accept a Game of the Year award once. That was respect to him on that one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hosted by Jeff Keighley, right?
Yeah.
See, it all comes back around. See how that works?
Yeah.
It sounds like a great show, though, AJ.
Yeah,
I'm probably
and
going to go back to the archives and check it out.
His co-host was Tommy Tallarico, and he's the guy who started Video Games Live.
Right.
I'm sure you know
And
what that is.
he did soundtracks for a bunch of games too, right?
Oh yeah, a ton of games, especially
Yeah.
the 90s.
Speaking of the 90s, which we were talking about this episode.
Which I think we're talking about anyway.
I think we were.
Yeah,
so TV video game stuff was pretty rampant with like scattered shows here and there. Mm-hmm. It took off more with the G4 channel that Trey was mentioning as well later on, but it's interesting what the public's view of video games was back then, which is why I think it was limited to like game shows and silly things like that, you know. But it's interesting to hear that Victor Lucas kind of tried to take it and make it more serious. So that's kind of fun, and you know, show people that hey, this hobby's kind of worth spending your time with.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he did, and he did a great job at doing that. I hope to see him on TV again. I mean, YouTube is cool, whatever, but yeah, I still watch TV.
I think when all is said and done, the 90s was a decade that was instrumental in making video games into something that was basically inaccessibly nerdy into something, and for children into something that was a bit more mainstream when all is said and done. It didn't really
Hmm.
get there, I think, until like maybe the past 10 years or so, but I think the foundations for it were started there with guys like that, though, who are basically saying
Yeah,
like this stuff is worth taking seriously. It is,
yeah. I think actually in the early 90s, I think it was very like gaming was very mainstream, and then it sort of just took a dip, and now it's like mainstream again because they had like The Wizard and like crappy movies based
yeah.
on video games, and yeah, it was very common. I think Nintendo really like you know resuscitated the whole gaming scene,
It
and
resuscitated a period. Like after Atari went bankrupt, it literally destroyed console gaming for a while.
yeah, yeah, and then Nintendo released the NES, and I think from then up until the mid '90s, they really they made gaming mainstream again.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think like maybe after that it was seen as pretty nerdy up until recently. Now
Mm.
everybody games.
I think I think the turning point again came with like Gears of War and like the first one in like the mid 2000s and Call of Duty 4, because that was
Yeah,
like
Halo too.
Halo definitely as well. It's actually what made Xbox Live a thing. But again, we're talking about the 90s. Like we're starting to
Yes.
reminisce more about what happened is the turn of the century. So why do we keep doing this?
We
Well,
can't help ourselves.
no, we
It's
cannot.
because the '90s was mainly like exactly what your point was, Trey. Is that it was basically like the launching point for this hobby to become what it's become.
Hmm.
Today, you don't see a kid walk by without playing Fortnite or
Hmm.
Pokemon Go or something like that.
As somebody who works in a GameStop, or as AJ over here would say, in EB Games, yeah, you
Right.
can't. You get so many people, kids coming in just wanting Fortnite VC. I swear, it gives me the biggest
Hmm.
headache.
I believe it, man.
Mhm,
But these games, like you were saying, wouldn't be here without what we had in the 90s.
mhm.
First person shooters, they became a thing in the 90s, which is a crazy to think about that the genre really isn't that old.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it started with you know
Doom?
id Software, arguably, doing Wolfenstein and stuff like that, but um it just skyrocketed from there, which is insane to me that you have Wolfenstein, you have Doom, which are still games that people look at as classic and still playable,
Mhm.
but today, every single week of the year, whether it's on Steam or a physical release in a retail store, you're going to find a new first person shooter on the shelf.
It feels like it, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
like even best great example, literally the same day the new Call of Duty came out, Modern Warfare. There was another first-person shooter game that came out called The Outer Worlds. Pretty sure some of you guys have
Right.
heard of that. And it's
Yeah.
it's just it's the whole market these days is ridiculously overly saturated.
Yeah.
And
And you could blame the 90s for that.
Yeah, I
I think
think
we can blame the '80s
GoldenEye.
more for that, but okay.
Yeah, I think GoldenEye really made first person shooters
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
popular.
It seems to be the one that everyone seems to agree was the first big first person shooter that got them into shooters if you were born in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I
I
remember
never
going to
played it
my
myself,
friend's
but
house and playing that, and I would just spawn and then like get shot in the back of the head, and I was like, "What just happened?" And since
that's what we
then,
call a spawn
si-
kill, kid.
since then, I never liked first person shooters, and I still don't.
Oh,
I like
That's sad.
Borderlands, but that's it.
mm,
Borderlands is fun.
mm. I
No.
just I never actually played GoldenEye, believe it or not. I never had it, and by the time I started getting into shooters, it was all about Halo and Call of Duty at that point.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense for sure. You
Mhm.
know, those are definitely good series in their own right. And I know GoldenEye definitely had a place in getting FPSs to where they are now. But as I mentioned before, you had Doom. You also had the game that came out after it, which was Quake. Which Quake
Ooh,
came out.
Quake,
Yeah, so
yes.
Quake. And I cover this game for those of you who are on my channel. Obviously, I already know this, but I play Quake continuously on my channel for people. They come out with new maps, blah, 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 still nowadays. But all that aside, when Quake came out in 96, it was revolutionary because even though Doom had online play with it, Quake introduced the technology where you could connect to servers with people, and you didn't have to like set up a room and do all this and that. You connected and played, and it was huge. And that is the game that really launched online gaming to where it is today too.
Yeah, I think I recall playing that with my computer class. Like my computer teacher was a big gamer, so we like set up a server and had everybody in the class join it, and we all played Quake together.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't that game also come out on the Sega Dreamcast, or am I thinking like Quake 2 or something like that?
I think that might have been Quake 3, if I
Okay,
remember
it's
right.
probably because like that's like the first time I played one of those was like on one of the was on the Dreamcast, and I remember having a lot of fun with that, and definitely on PC as well. But it yeah, that was one heck of a game, that's for damn sure. But I did not
Yeah.
realize it was the first one to actually do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Doom technically did it, but they needed like a separate program to run it. Quake did
Ooh.
everything inside the game itself.
I was
So
gonna say that sounds
that's,
very inconvenient on the part of Doom.
yeah, but hey, in 92 or 93, you're probably not going to be thinking about that too much. You're like, I can
That's
play
fair.
online. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's fair.
This was back in the day when, email was almost barely a thing, so but
Ugh.
yeah, uh, such a big genre nowadays though. And it's like your first person shooter basically has to have some kind of life online for it to survive. Like Call of Duty, for instance,
Mhm.
like that game would not be what it is if it didn't have the online deathmatch stuff.
Definitely not. Well, speaking of game genres or whatever franchises still last to this day, Pokemon. What do you
Yeah.
guys think of Pokemon? I think AJ knows nothing about that.
I played all the spin-offs, but not really much of the main series.
What do you mean by the
That's funny.
spin-offs?
Well, like Pokemon
Digimon.
Puzzle League.
Oh, I
Pokemon
see.
Puzzle League is like my favorite puzzle game. It's awesome.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Really?
What?
Okay. No,
Yes, the
I
silence.
wasn't expecting that.
Huh.
I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Curveball.
You're probably one of like maybe 5 people I've ever met in my lifetime who's actually played that game.
Have you played
Wow.
it?
Yeah, of course I played it.
Oh, it's a good
I
one.
had it, I had an N64. I played it. It was like it came out at a time where I was eating everything up that was Pokemon related.
Mm.
Yeah. The mystery dungeon games are fun too.
I never played any of those actually. I played a lot of the early mainstream installments, but I never played the Mystery Dungeon games. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I have no reason for it. I just never played them.
I once found a cartridge for I think Pokemon Blue in a playground buried in the
I,
sand.
I'm not sure if
Wow.
you're joking or not.
No, I did. Why would I? That's a weird thing to just make up.
Yeah.
I-
Buried
I-
treasure.
yeah, just
Yeah,
like
literally.
why would somebody bury a? You know what? Never mind.
Yeah, they probably just dropped it there or something.
Okay, so RC, how about your Pokemon memories?
So let's talk about Pokemon for a second, because
Okay.
I'm not anti Pokemon, but I'm not sure that I'm
Oh,
pro Pokemon either, because I did not actually grow up playing it.
okay.
I probably, when I was going to school, saw more of the reruns of the cartoon than I
Hmm.
have any experience playing the games, which is interesting. But I did recently get the newest Pokemon on Switch.
Shield or Sword?
I got Shield,
Okay.
and I just wanted to
Hold on, hold on.
see what it was all
No,
about.
this,
Exactly.
this is the proper name for it, though. It's Pokemon Stabby and Pokemon Deflecty. That's
I
what
got
we're calling.
Deflecty.
Okay, yeah, you got Deflecty.
Got Deflecty. Pokey, I was like, everyone's going to get Pokey. I'll get Deflecty. So,
Stabby.
but regardless, I got to say, I'm sorry, Stabby. With Pokemon, though, is Pokemon just about grinding? Is that the whole crux of it?
Um, I think it's a lot like any other JRPG in that sense, that there is always going to be a certain degree of grind to it. But to be perfectly honest with you, Pokemon Sword and Shield are actually the least grindy games. Is probably the least grindy game I've ever played in the franchise.
Okay.
Yeah, because there
I was
is
just
a
curious because it seems like you go from, gym to gym, and I get what's happening. I get the story because there's not much going on there for story.
there's always a variation on a random kid from a small town, his rival that he's fighting with all throughout it. The 8 gyms, some weird mysterious organization that's up to no good that you're fighting at the same time too. Then the big league where you become champion. That is literally the plot of every single game.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but as far as the grind factor goes, yeah, there's a lot of grind in these games. You go from place to place, you fight trainers, you fight wild Pokemon. There's really not any avoiding that. Like I said, Shield and Sword have been kind of lenient with that. But a lot of the older games were a lot grindier than that. They really padded out their runtime with basically kicking the shit out of you with their gym leaders, with other trainers, and but yeah, the fact that you're saying this one feels kind of grindy to you is interesting to me because yeah, honestly, you ain't seen nothing once until you've seen the other ones. To tell you the truth, I hate to be
Right.
that way, but like you got off easy, man. You got off easy.
No, that's fair. I really wanted to play one finally to be like, you know what? I've been hearing for so many years that this is good, and I like monsters. I like cartoons. I was like, okay, let's give this a shot. And I wouldn't say I'm not having fun with it, but I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around why people are so rabid for it. So I don't know. Maybe you can go into your
It
memories and maybe you can explain it.
it's really just it's a franchise that for a lot of people it's like one of like the first big video game franchises that I think they played. It's one of those things that everybody liked. Everyone had their own version of it. Everyone had the cards. Everyone watched the TV show. It was almost. I'm trying to think of. It's kind of like what the Marvel universe is now in a lot of ways, or it's kind of like the
Hmm.
video game equivalent of what Star Wars back was in the 70s and 80s. It's just something we all collectively saw, got a hold of when we were children, basically, and it just got its claws into us, and it just stuck there. That's basically what it is. And because of that, Pokemon's essentially been able to get away with doing the same thing for like 25 years because of that initial nostalgia.
Yeah, makes sense. I
But
think a lot of series have kind of rode the coattails of the previous installment for
mhm,
sure.
Yeah, I guess
um,
that's the same as like Star Wars and stuff because
to a certain extent,
well
yes, but
because
Star
like
Wars is actually doing different things now, I'd say.
no, I mean like the whole nostalgia thing because
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
like people who grew up watching Star Wars love it. I've never seen a Star Wars movie, and then when I like see it on TV or something, I just think, what the heck is this? It's like a children's film. Like
It's
I don't get it at all. I'm not
it's
saying it's bad. I'm just saying like
that I was gonna say that's a
there's a lot
whole
of
other
nostalgia attached to it, and that's why
yeah,
people seem to
it's
like
a
it.
whole other can of worms that I really would rather not get into tonight, to tell you the truth, because
We'll
no,
save
because
that for another episode. Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it's the
well,
same. It's the same with like Pokemon because a lot of people played it in like
mhm,
'96 or whenever it came out,
there's
and
a
that's why they still play it now. But
yeah,
like it's really hard for me to get into that series because I don't have that nostalgia attached to it.
there's a
Yeah.
joke among a lot of people like around my age range is that Pokemon is a franchise that is designed for 8-year-olds, but is only being played and bought by 30-year-olds,
Yeah,
and
that's
that
how I
that
feel
basically
about
sums up
Star
the
Wars.
franchise. To a certain extent, yeah, but like
Yeah.
that's kind of how the franchise has sort of been for a while now. And those first few installments, for me at least, were fundamental in getting me into gaming. I'm not even going to pretend about that, but just the franchise these days, like just looking at Shield, you can see my whole review there on Video Chums. Link in the description. If I'm not sure what this is going to be on, honestly, but whatever. Um,
Yeah, we'll link it.
Okay.
We'll link it.
But it's starting to feel like the franchise has kind of gotten dumbed down. Maybe that's just me just being an old man yelling at clouds, but it's just yeah, it's gone on for so long. I'm not really sure where it's going at this point. If that makes any
You
sense.
feel like it needs to be Breath of the Wild.
No, I think it needs to be more God of War did.
Okay.
Like as in, you have a
Blood and
franchise.
gore.
Gritty reboot.
Okay, now to be fair about this, okay, Pokemon is a game series that claims it's all about friendship, companionship, and camaraderie. It's about glorified animal cockfights.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be that big of a stretch, just saying.
Just get Michael Vick involved.
Jesus Christ. Oh, you really went there. Oh.
We should get back to the 90s.
Michael Vick was
Okay.
mid-2000s. We're talking about Pokemon,
Ooh.
though, so I mean...
So
Yeah.
one thing that's awesome is PlayStation recently had 25th anniversary.
It did. Did any of you guys use the PlayStation Classic, though?
PlayStation Classic? Oh, the
Yeah, it's
mini
like-
console?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
No.
pretty cool.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it.
Okay.
I prefer the Nintendo mini consoles. But back in I guess
Someone
90s.
tell Sony. Someone liked the classic. Hurry.
Well, I like any
Basically.
any classic consoles like that. I even have the Commodore 64 one. It's pretty cool. But yeah, the PlayStation 1 came out in Japan in '94. It came out here, I think, in '95. Did you guys buy that back in the day?
So I was about 5 when that thing came out. So no, I did not buy it.
So
my
did you
mom
ever
did.
have a PS1?
Yeah, I had it. I'm just busting balls a little. No, my mom was. It was actually bought it for my brother, and I ended up playing that a lot. Big games for me on that one though. I think were one of the early Crash Bandicoot games. Can't remember which one it was though. All 3 Spyro the Dragons, and the second Twisted Metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played the same games. Did you have one, RC?
In the 90s, I sort of had this, you guys could tell me if this happened to you as well. I did not have a PS1. I had a N64, but I sort of had this approach in the 90s where I always felt like I had the wrong console because nowadays you could just buy what you want because we're adults. You could just get the console, right? I'll get all 3, whatever. But back then it was like, you got to pick one. You can't have both.
Okay.
Only the rich kids, my rich friends had both, So it's like, I started with the NES, like you couldn't go wrong with the NES. Then it went to, Sega Genesis, Game Gear, N64. And every single time, every generation, I felt like I had the wrong console. Like with Sega Genesis, even though the Genesis is a remarkable console, my friend had an SNES and I was like, he's got Super Metroid and Zelda and Donkey Kong Country and Mario World. And I was like, what did I do? And then all my friends had a PlayStation, which leads us to this part here, where they had just about everything. And N64 had Mario 64 and GoldenEye.
I think that might have more to do with just I feel like all kids experience this to a certain extent where it's more like just more envy at what other kids have, the fact that they don't have that. It's not really so much that you got the wrong thing, it's that you see this other shiny thing that your friends have and you want that too, therefore you are lesser for not having that for whatever reason.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I had the PlayStation. I saved up my money for a long time because Final Fantasy VII was coming out and I was a big fan of Final Fantasy 3 or 6 as it should be called. I played the heck out of Final Fantasy 6/3, and I saw all the TV ads. Oh, Final Fantasy VII's coming, so I save up my money and I get the PS1. I think on September 20th, 1997, if I remember the date correctly.
Wow.
And yeah, that was it was amazing. It just blew my mind. I'm playing Final Fantasy VII. I have this 2 demo discs, one with Bushido Blade and all these Square games on it, and the other one with a bunch of, first party games like Crash Bandicoot and all that. Oh man, yeah, it was amazing. One of the first games I played that just completely knocked my socks off was Symphony of the Night. That's still my favorite game ever.
What's very sad about a lot of that is that I didn't actually play Symphony of the Night or Final Fantasy like 7 or 8 until I was like 25.
Yeah.
I never played him back in the day.
Yeah, so all my friends had like 64, and they were all like bragging about their Nintendo 64 all the time, and I'd be like, "Well, what are you talking about? You just have like GoldenEye and Mario. Like Mario's cool, whatever, but like that's all you have. I have all these games." And people would be making fun of me. It's like whatever, PlayStation's better.
I
So what I'm trying to say is, yes, RC, you made the wrong decision.
oh my
You should have.
god.
You should have
I
had a
know.
PlayStation.
My childhood guilt comes back.
I got an N64 in like 2000 or something, and I
Mhm.
like retroactively bought a few games for it and still own it. It's a solid console for sure. But I think like
It
the
is.
PlayStation 1 library is just it's amazing. Like
It's a bit
Oh
more
yeah,
solid, yeah.
yeah.
yeah. No doubt about it. And it was overall like a better performing console most of the time too. So it's like, the N64 would sometimes get like a crummy, port of a PS1 game, and it was just like,
Yeah.
why even bother? What
Yeah,
are you
like
Yeah.
they
doing?
replaced the FMVs with like still images, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
remember that actually happened with the Spider-Man game that came out. I remember playing it on the PS1 and just having just a blast with it. I go over to my friend's house, they had an N64 at the time. We didn't, and they would, and you'd see this, and instead of cutscenes, we get like these like comic stills or whatever. I'm like, what the hell
Yeah.
is this?
Yeah, that happened
What
with
am
a
I
lot
looking
of
at?
games. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did. It really did. It couldn't handle video processing
Mm-mm.
at all. But yeah, I don't want everybody to think I'm completely dogging the 64 because I loved my 64. Like
Oh,
there
same
are
here. Same here.
a lot of classic games on it, but
Yeah.
at the time and looking back on it now even too, there were just so many classic games on the PS1. Man, like anytime I went to a friend's house and he had a new game or whatever it was, I was just always impressed with it. Like the first time I saw them play Tekken, I was like, 64 does
Oh
not
yeah.
have anything like this.
Tekken was great. That was the first
Yeah.
fighting game I played that I was just completely obsessed with. I think the first one I played was Tekken 2.
Well,
Yeah,
just
like
out of
all the characters in it. Like there was like 30 characters or something. That was insane.
Mhm.
You could play as a bear.
Yeah. And a
I,
Russian
s-
robot guy.
I still
Yeah.
say Mortal Kombat's better than all this, but okay.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat was cool. I had all of those on Super NES.
Okay.
Yeah, I like those games, but like Tekken just felt so much more fluid compared to Mortal
It's.
Kombat.
I think I could be wrong in saying this, but I want to say it was the first 3D fighter.
Tekken?
Yeah.
I think Battle Arena Toshinden was.
Okay.
Mm.
Let me rephrase that. The only 3D fighter anyone cares about.
What about Virtua Fighter?
Oh yeah. Oh, now I have to look up which one came first, Virtual Fighter or
Now I have to look up what
Toshinden.
Virtual Fighter is.
I'll get out of here. Get off this
But
podcast.
that is great though. Mentioning Mortal Kombat though, because Mortal Kombat was such a huge series in the '90s. My God,
It's
like
still a
Oh
huge
yeah,
series
that
now,
was,
if we're being honest.
I know
and the
it's one of
movies
the
were
only
great.
fighting
The
game.
movies were awesome too.
The
Oh
movies
yeah,
are
they were
awesome. I
classic.
will hear no discussion otherwise. I will hear no objections to the first one not being awesome.
Hey, when I was a kid and I saw the first one and Johnny Cage punches Goro in the balls, I laughed my ass off. So I don't care. I'm
I definitely have a lot of fond memories of that one. That's for sure.
Yep,
Um,
classic.
mhm.
Oh man, but yeah, Mortal Kombat in the '90s though, like even though it's still a good series today, back then it was like it was a godlike series. It was the game that everybody was playing and everybody was
Yeah.
talking about, and it was insane how popular that
Yeah,
was.
that song from the movie that
Dun,
was
dun, dun,
everywhere.
dun, 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 dun.
Yep.
They played that at like sporting events at my school.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it.
It was awesome. But
Mortal
I was
Kombat.
way off about those fighting games, by the way. Virtua Fighter came out in '93.
Wow.
Wow, that is old for a 3D
Mhm.
fighter. And
I was gonna
Toshinden
say,
came out in '95, so
Okay.
it came out
looking at some of the
January 1st,
oh
'95.
my god, I'm looking at some screenshots for that. What am I looking at?
Virtua Fighter?
We,
They are literally cubes connected together, fighting each other.
Yeah, but it was
Yeah.
93. That was awesome back then.
it's Minecraft of '93.
Oh my god!
Minecraft fighters. No, that was awesome. Like back then, you couldn't get 3D graphics like that. It was, yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
you had to get a voodoo card, baby.
Oh my god!
I honestly, that's the first thing I don't know what it is today.
I will always,
man.
I was always say though that late period 2D games are hold up far better than early period 3D games, though.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Agree with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, of course.
No doubt.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, hey, some of the old 2D games from the '90s are still played rampantly today. You know, SNES guys. You want to talk about like classic 2D games?
Yeah,
My God,
I-
there's so many great games on that system.
I never
some of the
owned one.
best games.
Yeah,
Super
Like-
Metroid, Link to the Past, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island. Get out of here. Get out of here.
so many good ones. Super Castlevania.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my God! Like they came out with the Switch Online SNES stuff like a couple months ago, and when they showed the list of games, I was like, oh my God, these really were all on the Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
There's so many good games,
Yeah. Amazing.
and they're all games that people still play today. Like Mario World is a game that I will revisit at least once a year. And I may not play it through to completion, but I play at least through like the first, second world.
Mhm.
And I always have a great time with that game.
Yeah, I can't believe like how much fun that is nowadays. Just like watching the overworld open up as you finish levels, like that's so satisfying. I love that game. But then I get to the Forest of Illusion and it's like, what do I do here? How do I get out of this? You
Where am
must
I
know what
going?
I'm
Where's
talking
the
about.
secret? Oh yeah, the secret door, or don't you have to run a key up a pipe
Yeah.
to a secret thing?
You have to like carry keys to just find the normal exits, and like the
yeah.
exits that are easy to get to like send you back. It's like, well, that was a waste.
You're like, come on!
Get
But
me out of this
what a
forest.
classic game though.
Hey, what's with forests and SNES games? There was the Link to the Past. Didn't that have a forest in it that you get lost in? Or am I thinking of the original Zelda?
I think it's every Zelda.
I think it's every Zelda.
I think every Zelda that's ever come out ever has had a mystery forest in it, or mysterious forest, I should say.
Even Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how you found the Master Sword, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The Lost Woods. Yeah.
There you go, Lost Woods. That's what I was thinking of. Yep.
Like I was saying, though, I never actually had an SNES. We were Sega Genesis people in my house. So,
Oh, another great console.
indeed.
You know, Sega Genesis was really good. Like I said, at the time, I felt like I had the wrong console. I go over to a friend's house and play Donkey Kong Country or whatever it was, and I'd be like, I don't have this. But then I go home and play Sonic 2, and I would be like, this fixes everything. It's such a great game.
You got your blast
Big games.
processing and
Yeah, last processing, bro.
I remember the two big games for me on that. It felt like was definitely Sonic 2, which I probably played more than any other game until probably till I got my N64. In all honesty, and then I got Star Fox, which that was that one. Basically, I can't even remember how many times I beat that one. But the big one for me, was that one and Streets of Rage. Those games.
Those are great.
Mm-hmm. Those are straight up classics, and it's a franchise that I honestly do miss.
Well,
yeah, it's
you're in
coming
luck.
back.
Yeah, I know they're coming out with
Yeah.
the fourth one. I know that. Who
I
knows
think
when
that,
it's going to
that
come out? With it,
Genesis has the best Contra game ever on it. Contra Hardcore.
I never played
Ultra
that one.
hardcore.
You guys played? Oh, you haven't, Trey?
Nah.
How about you, RC?
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's awesome. You could play it through.
Better than Rogue Core, I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, Admittedly, yes, I like Rogue Core, but Hardcore is better. You could play it through so many different times, and then it's like, you could go through different paths and stuff, like hidden paths through the game, and there's so many different
Yeah.
endings and all that. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna be honest. I was never much of a Contra guy, to tell you the truth. So yeah, it just wasn't.
dear.
It's just one of those franchises that just wasn't really for me. It was just a little too difficult as a kid, and growing up, I just didn't really have much exposure to it, except for like maybe one or two instances where I played it for like 2 minutes and then just stopped.
You
But it
have
was
to
a
play
fun
it co-op.
2 minutes, right?
What?
Yeah, it was a fun 10 minutes.
2 minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes.
And no,
It was
because
the best 2 minutes.
I always something. No, I got it. Something you can say while playing Contra and having sex.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. It was the best 2 minutes. It was the worst 2 minutes.
That'd be hard to do at the same time.
No doubt.
Oh my god.
If Contra wasn't hard enough already.
Oh god.
I have to deal with this nonsense.
Oh my god.
Contra Harder Core? I don't know. The Genesis also housed like a bunch of other games that were exclusive for it that you can't get. We had Columns, which I actually love. I love Columns.
You love Column 3?
Don't you talk shit about Columns.
Yeah,
Great
Columns
series. Was there a Columns 2?
Yeah, it was for arcade.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't
Columns
know that.
1 Genesis, Columns 2 arcade, Columns 3 Genesis.
Yeah, makes sense.
Not really, but they tried.
Did they?
Nah.
Well, we also had I don't know if you guys played this one, Rocket Knight Adventures, where you played as a They try to reboot it as like a new series within the past few years. I think on Xbox 360 maybe, and it was awful.
Oh, well, get out of here.
Well, it wasn't good though. It was like it didn't feel right. The original game feels great.
I think it's just because they gave it 3D graphics, so it made it feel like, like a 3D game with 2D gameplay. Those rarely work out. But it was pretty fun. I like that. But definitely the older ones are better. I think it was called Sparkster on Super NES, by the way.
Sparkster, I think, was a sequel, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But also pretty good. You also had one called Dynamite Heady, where you played as this weird creature who, like, I think he punched his head at enemies and stuff. But it's a great little game.
Yeah, they made a bunch of games like that. The developer. Oh no, I'm thinking of Decap Attack. Sorry, Dynamite Heady. That was way better than Decap Attack.
Yeah, Decap Attack it's all right, but
yeah,
Dynamite Heady,
yeah,
classic game though.
That's the Treasure game.
Yeah, it was, and Treasure always released great stuff. Gunstar Heroes for one, another Genesis game.
Oh yeah, Genesis is better than I was giving it credit for. Now that you're listing all these awesome games.
Yeah, and because I wanted to talk about these because Dynamite Heady and the Sparkster from Rocket Knight Adventures, another big thing in the 90s that seemed to like just pop up constantly were companies trying to come up with their own mascots for different games.
Yeah.
Arrow the Acrobat.
Arrow the Acrobat.
I think Movie Bob summed this up best, where everyone saw Sonic, which was like the first like big '90s mascot thing, and then tried to copy its formula.
Yeah, tried and failed every single time.
Like Bugsby the cat, I think his name was. Bugsby?
Bubsy,
thank you.
Yeah.
Bubsy. What could possibly go wrong?
Bubsy 3D.
He was the most popular of the bad ones, though, because I mean his legacy. I mean, it is. Whew.
Like, apparently, the original games or whatever, they're not actually that bad. They're just thoroughly mediocre.
Bubsy 3D was one of the worst games ever made.
I believe that.
I do believe that. PS1, I think.
Now, some mascots that came out were super successful. Like Spyro, for one, was huge.
Yeah, Rayman's awesome.
Rayman was also another good one. You know who wasn't? Alex Kidd.
Yeah, that was
Not very popular.
Sonic's predecessor from Sega.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie. I had to look up who that was.
Alex
I
Kidd.
That's
don't
okay.
know who this is. I don't know who this is.
Which proves the point, right?
Yeah.
No one. Yeah, it's and of course Crash Bandicoot was huge back then as well. But you had all kinds here. I actually have a small list I brought up. You mentioned Arrow the Acrobat. You had Punky Skunk. I've never
Oh,
even heard of that one.
Oh
Punky
my
Skunk.
god.
Yeah, that's awesome. That came out in Japan in like the mid '90s, and it like got ported here in 2000 or something.
Why?
It's so much fun. I love Punky Skunk. I think I included that
I
in
love it.
my Hidden Gems articles.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah,
Did you include Rocky Rodent?
never even heard of that.
Okay. What about Gex?
Yeah, Gex is great.
Gex is great. I don't know if I'd say he's great.
Yeah, the original one
Um,
was a 2D platformer, and then 2 and 3 were 3D platformers, and they're really fun. They
I
had
just
that.
remember Gex kind of being an example of bad early 3D games these days. To tell you the truth, I don't remember much
yeah.
about it beyond that.
I really wanted to like Gex. He's voiced by Dana Gould, pretty funny comedian
Yeah,
back in the 90s, but I really wanted to like Gex, but it just didn't work. It didn't work out for me.
I played that quite a lot. The 3D ones actually I played. Um, Another one that I thought was a lot of fun was Croc.
Yeah, so Croc.
I want to say that one fell in the same category as Gex, but I could be wrong.
That game is so cute.
I love the look of it. It's basically like, you know, kind of like what it was them trying to make their own Banjo-Kazooie, I think, in a way, because they have the same googly eye look and all that.
Yeah, those little gobos that you save, little fuzzballs
Yeah.
with the eyes on them. They're so
Oh,
cute.
this one. Yeah, okay, I know what this one is. Yeah.
Did well enough to do a Croc too, though, so it must have done pretty well.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
don't know. The platforming in that was always a bit strange, though. Again, it was a game I really wanted to like, but it just didn't go that route for me.
It happens.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, um,
Anyway,
what PC games do you guys are big? Were big with you in the '90s. We already talked about Quake, but were there anything else that really stuck out for you?
I played Morap's World like crazy. I don't know if anybody's heard of that.
Nah,
no, I don't think so. What is that?
Morap's World. It's probably oh, it says it's 1991. Okay. It's
Perfect.
like a first person dungeon
Okay.
exploration game. Where you can see like straight ahead, behind you, left and right, and so you like just
Mhm.
use the arrow keys to move around dungeons.
Oh, yeah, this is like some Ultima stuff, really,
Uh,
like
to
old
be
school
honest,
Ultima stuff.
I don't remember Ultima. I played
Oh, okay.
Morap's World, but not Ultima.
It looks like a colored version of the early Ultima games, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. So you just
So,
keep like killing monsters and like getting currencies from them, and then you
mhm.
use it to get more powerful and go deeper in the dungeon.
Mhm.
I was just glued to my computer screen playing that when I was a kid.
Okay.
That's cool.
I think for me, the big PC game, want to say was probably the second Age of Empires. Kind of getting later in the
Oh yeah.
'90s on that one, but Age of Empires 2 was one I spent so much time on. Kind of installed a love of history in me as well. Games campaign modes were horribly inaccurate, but that's where
Mm-hmm.
it started. Um, it says that William Wallace won the Battle of Falkirk. That is hilarious.
What?
As somebody who is Scottish, I know that is complete bullshit.
I
Well, I'm
don't-
sure somebody out there, some Scotsman, is agreeing with you.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. No doubt. looking at a lot of those scenarios now, though, or like a lot of the campaign modes now, though, it's very strange how they decided to reinterpret some of these battles that happened back in the day. I'm not sure of how many of you are like are either one of you guys history buffs?
Really.
Um, nah,
No.
no.
Okay. Then I will stop myself from nerding out over some weird, obscure historical stuff. So we can move on if you want.
If it involves George Washington, then count me in. But
It
other
is
than
not
that,
George Washington. This one is going to be a Joan of Arc thing, actually.
oh, I hear she was pretty cool though.
Um, I mean,
Anyway,
AJ. I mean, like you're Canadian, so I Canadian. I don't know, like what, like, are you Canadian French or Canadian British? Was there a difference? I don't actually know.
I'm just a Canadian fellow.
Okay, okay,
I don't
through
speak
and through.
French or anything, so I guess
okay,
that
okay.
that makes me a
I didn't
bad
know if he was. I didn't know if you
Canadian.
wanted to chime in. I don't
Uh,
know. I mean, I'm Scottish. I don't speak Gaelic, so I mean, does that make me a bad Scottish person? I don't know.
yeah, probably.
No. Oh, okay.
How about
I
you,
mean, if you're
Archie?
Catholic, I mean, if
What?
you're Catholic and you don't speak Latin, does that make you a bad Catholic?
Well, according to people my mom's age, yes.
Fair
Oh
enough.
dear.
Let's okay. Let's not talk about religion here.
Gaming in the 90s.
Gaming in
So
the '90s.
how about you?
That goes into organized religion.
right.
Oh no,
The,
there you go. Gaming's the devil. There you go. Gaming in the '90s in a nutshell.
what
Everybody in the
about
90s thought that gaming was for the devil, I think, right?
And before that, it was Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And before that,
I can
God only knows
understand
what.
why though.
What?
You have games like Doom come out where you're destroying demons and everyone's like, yeah, I hear there's a button you push to worship the devil, and it's
Yeah,
like
it's not like you're running around slaughtering the hordes of hell, protecting humanity or anything like that.
right. No, that's too deep. No, they worship the devil.
It has to be. This has to
it?
be why those kids shot up those schools.
Mm-hmm. But you were asking what PC games.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
No, that's
Archie,
okay.
tell us about
I
your
played
PC
quite a few
adventures.
PC games in the 90s, but what was that, AJ?
I said, tell us about your PC adventures.
Oh, I have some PC adventures to tell you about.
But
Let
are
me
they
tell you.
politically correct?
Of course, they always
I'm
are.
sorry.
I try to
I had to. I had to. I'm sorry.
Oh, because
I try to
PC?
keep as many of my friends on board as I can.
Okay.
Oh boy. We mentioned Quake, so it goes without saying. And of course, everybody liked Doom when it came out. However, one of the other big series got its start in the 90s, which was Warcraft.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
speaking of Blizzard and like hell and all that,
yeah,
Diablo. Did you ever play that one?
right. Yes, that was the big one. I was going to lead to that one next,
Oh,
but yeah,
okay.
you're
Okay. I'm
right.
sorry.
Like,
We were talking
no,
about
that's
like
okay.
Christians and all that, so it's like okay, I got
Yeah,
it.
no, that game was under fire because of that. And
Mhm.
I actually read an interview recently with one of the original creators of the game, and he was talking about how they actually had to dumb the game down a lot as far as like the
Really?
gore and the yeah, they I guess they originally had crosses in the game for whatever reason, and the company was like, maybe let's not include that. Let's like make it a little bit more ambiguous, and
Which
which was probably a good move, but
which developer was it? Do you
that
know?
was Blizzard. So
No, like which designer, whoever was it that was the interviewer?
oh, I'm not sure. It was one of the guys who went on to do Torchlight and stuff like that, like one of the main
Okay.
guys. But
It's
yeah,
probably David Brevik then. I'm not sure though.
yeah, I didn't catch the name. I read it quickly like a few weeks ago.
Gotcha.
But either way, found it pretty damn interesting. That they even had to censor it back then, just like you were saying, because of people like if we if we include these crosses in the game, we're never going to hear the end of it. So
I've, believe it or not, the only one of those games that I've ever played was the third one.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that was the only one I played, and even then, it was only for about a couple hours on my Switch because, like, I borrowed the game. I have the Eternal Collection sitting in front of me, but I've yet to install it in my PS4.
Oh.
But I do like the concept of them. Isn't like the whole reoccurring idea in those games that you're basically becoming a bigger monster to destroy a monster kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you just grinding, leveling up, getting better armor, better spells, and you're trying to destroy the devil every single time,
Okay.
which is probably a good thing, right? I mean, I haven't heard too many people say don't kill the devil, so then I don't think people could be offended by that. But
Or is it better that you
regardless,
have the devil you know? Mm.
hmm,
Mm.
in the end, we only defeat ourselves.
Isn't like the guy who like becomes the devil in the second one like your character from the last game or something?
Wow, I never paid
Spoiler
attention to the
alert.
stories of those games.
I feel like I
Right.
read somewhere the plot of the second one. The main character from the first game is the bad guy in this one because he's been taken over by the devil or something.
And Bruce Willis was dead the whole time.
Spoilers,
Jesus, AJ.
Jesus,
Jesus.
spoilers.
Just spoiling things from the 90s.
Oh my
90s.
god.
Anyway, the PC had a lot of great games. I just
Mhm,
wanted to mention Blizzard because they were a titan back then.
mhm.
They had, even though they're still a titan now, but back then it was like, man, Diablo,
Mhm.
Warcraft, you couldn't go wrong. Really couldn't.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you, right? Classic stuff. They also released StarCraft back then, which I wasn't as into,
Mhm.
but still, it had a huge crowd. A lot of people loved it,
I believe it.
and to this day, still play it online.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I can't say I ever really played any of those, unfortunately. I wasn't really aware of Blizzard's existence until World of Warcraft came out, honestly.
Sure.
A lot of my
Yeah, I think a lot
friends,
of people started there.
yeah, a lot of my friends definitely did. And at first, they didn't want to do it or want to play it because they hated the idea of having to pay like $50 or so and then pay like another like $10 a month for it.
Hmm.
It pissed them off so much, but eventually they got sucked into it. That's how it always
Yep.
went. Um, but I really wanted to get into the older Warcraft games because really big RTS fan, and it just never happened with me, sadly. Finding those games is kind of a pain, and they were always overpriced.
Well, I'll tell you what. All you have to do is look up a video of Warcraft 2 and
Hmm.
someone clicking on the peasants. That's really all you need from that game because you get any of their quotes from the game are it's really all you need. It's all I retain really from the game because when you click on them, you have the peasants and they'll be like, "Ready for walk? Okay. What do you want now?" Like all that. My friends and I, because we played that game so much in the 90s, we just say those things back to each other.
Oh my
So
god,
like my friend will be like, "Hey, can you help me carry this?" And I'll be like, "More work." Gets a laugh every time.
that's great. So what Star Wars games do you guys play? Did you play since got the movie coming out, new game just came out, may as well like put that in. I think AJ said he's not a big Star Wars fan though.
I played Super Star Wars at a time back in the 90s, but that was really about it for me.
Really?
Oh no, I'm sorry. What was the first person or rather third person Jedi game?
Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight, something like that.
It was one of those. One of those I also played.
Yeah, Dark Forces or something like that.
Yeah, and
It's
that was a lot of fun too.
Mhm.
But Super Star Wars on the SNES was hard. That was a difficult game.
So I have heard.
Yes.
Yeah, that
Um,
game's pretty fun. I played that one.
oh, you did?
Yeah, they released it on PS4.
Did it make sense without the movies though?
Well, does it have to? It's a 2D action game.
Yeah. If you didn't see the movies, how are you gonna know what's happening
I
in the
don't
2D
know
action
what's
game?
happening. There's these people running at me, and I have a gun. I don't know. Should I shoot them?
It's
Should I
almost
jump
like
over
you're
this
running
pit?
around with an assault rifle.
I don't know. I don't know if I should jump over this pit or if I should just go inside of it.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that game's
For me,
fun. I like it.
what other games did you play?
Star Wars games?
Yeah.
I didn't really play any of them back in the 90s.
Hmm.
I think the first one I really liked was Lego Star Wars, but that's slightly after the 90s.
That's a
That
little
is
bit after the
slightly
90s.
after.
It is
Yeah.
slightly. Uh,
Oh, they did have that cool Phantom Menace racing game on the 64 that
the
was pretty
pod
fun
racing
too.
game. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
told that one's pretty fun. I remember having a lot of fun with that one with my cousins.
Yeah, I would recommend that one too. I forgot that was Star Wars, but
It's
you know.
it's kind of one of those weird things where like pod racing became like a source of mockery for Phantom Menace, but it actually turned out to be a pretty solid video game when all is said and done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
downloaded
was.
those on the PS3.
Hmm.
Those, I think they were for PS2 or PS2 Classic games.
I think there was also a version on the PS2. I want to say it was like Pod Racing 2 or something like that that
Yeah, something
followed
like
like
that.
Clone Wars Anakin say I remember him saying, "I did it once, I can do it again," as his like catchphrase and that or whatever. I have a very vivid memory of certain things like that, which is very strange.
Pod racing.
Oh boy.
I remember I actually didn't play too many Star Wars video games when I was younger, except for one. It was an arcade game.
Yeah.
Mm.
It was a Star Wars arcade game where you basically had that joystick and you were shooting at TIE fighters and everything while they were coming at you.
Oh
I remember
yeah.
spending so much time and money on that thing.
So guess
And
what? Guess
Hmm?
what, Trey?
Chicken butt.
What?
He got you.
Oh
Got
no.
him.
So there's this bar on my street, on my block. So I walk out the front of my building and then I turn left and there's a bar right there. And they
Okay.
have that arcade machine that you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah. So I could go play that game whenever I want.
Oh no! I want it. Oh.
Let me ask: is this establishment a barcade, or is it just a bar with an arcade
Yeah.
in it?
I don't know what the difference is.
A barcade is basically an arcade that serves alcohol. An arcade with a bar with arcades games in it, or is just a bar with a few arcade games in it.
Yeah,
Well, this
they'll
one's
have
like
like.
half bar and half arcade, so
I want to say it's a barcade then.
it has like
Okay,
a
yeah,
bar in the
probably. Yeah.
middle and then a whole bunch of like skee ball machines and old arcade games. They have like all of
Oh,
the Konami beat 'em ups.
Hmm.
Speaking of
nice.
90s games,
90's.
they have
90s.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, X-Men, and
Oh man.
Simpsons.
Yes, please. Let's talk about arcade in the
That's
90's,
the
guys. 'Cause
trifecta of
oh,
awesome Konami beat 'em ups right there.
so good,
Am I right
so good.
or am I right? Marge
Was Simpsons
Simpson.
Konami?
Yeah,
I want
Marge
to say it
Simpson
was.
with the
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner. That's can't beat
I
that.
know. And Bart had a skateboard,
Yep.
and Lisa had the jump rope.
Yeah, she should have had a saxophone, but whatever. Still a great game.
I'll agree with that.
Well, speaking of, wow, I completely forgot where I was going with that. I have not had that happen in a minute. I was just, I had a whole thing planned out in my head and then just gone. Just gone. I don't.
Welcome to old age, my friend.
You're the youngest guy here, Trey. You shouldn't be the one
I
with
know. Why
Alzheimer's.
did that happen? I don't know how that happened. That's just like it just vanished.
Well,
Something about arcade, something about Konami. I don't remember
Beat 'em
anymore. Oh well.
ups. No.
let's just talk about arcades though, because
Okay.
arcades were great in the 90's. Like, aside from just the fighting games and the brawlers, because those were all great. We mentioned Mortal Kombat. That's kind of how Mortal Kombat got its legs, was in the
It did,
arcade.
yeah.
But man, oh my god, you had all the crazy shooting games like House of the Dead.
Mm-hmm. That was a really big one for me when I was young as well.
Yeah, love that
You
game.
had, yeah, that was a really, really good one.
Metal
And then you had
Slug.
terrible shooting games too, like that Aerosmith. What was it? A Revolution? Something?
Revolution X.
Yes,
Is that
Yeah.
a thing?
it's a thing.
Oh man.
Do you like Aerosmith and do you like shooting dudes? Because you can listen to Aerosmith and shoot dudes in Revolution X.
What a great idea.
I'm just now just like picturing like a really like I don't know, like some kind of John Wick style shootout sort of game or whatever with Dream On put on the background for whatever reason.
Or
I
maybe you're
don't know
just
how that
like
works.
shooting heroin needles into Steven Tyler.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
that would be
Oh
great.
my god.
That would be more appropriate.
Oh. Mm.
So, arcade games, AJ. What were some of
Mm.
your favorites?
Oh, Frogger probably, but that's 80s. I love
That is
Frogger.
80s, but still good. Still good.
They've
Yeah,
had so many Frogger cartoons though, so I mean
cartoons,
games.
games,
Frogger games.
Frogger games.
Re-releases of various Frogger games.
They did reboot Frogger in the 90s with like kind of that cartoony look, right?
Yeah.
I'd say so, yeah.
Um. Yeah.
You really threw 'em
Konami
there,
was
Troy.
the. I don't know. I'm kind of.
I think I
My brain's turning to mush slowly.
Oh no.
Uh.
long day.
Yeah. Very long day actually. But let's not get into that. Uh.
Okay.
Konami, Taito, and Capcom, probably the best arcade developers, I would
I would say
say.
so, yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can't disagree because we talked about Mortal Kombat, but we haven't talked about Street Fighter yet. Street Fighter 2 to be exact.
2 Turbo
What a-
I
Championship
know. Wait,
Edition.
we had. I just
apostrophe
real.
X.
Oh no.
That's what I was going to do.
I was gonna say I just realized we hadn't actually talked about that. How did we forget about that?
Such a great game.
Mhm.
Whether it's
Absolutely.
2 Turbo Championship, EX
Two
plus
XP
3.
30th
Yeah,
anniversary edition. I
right.
don't even know.
What about the first one though? Am I right?
Right?
Oh God,
Fighting Street.
Mm.
what a good one.
Yeah,
What a bad game,
it
right?
was
How
a
did it
big.
start
It
there?
was a big step up from YR Kung Fu, whatever that was. Remember that one?
Yeah.
How do you even say
I'm just.
that? What is it?
I'm just.
YR Kung Fu?
Yeah, I am
I
kind
can't
of
help you with
curious
that one.
though. Did either of you guys ever even play the first one?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what we're talking
Really?
about.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not
I'm
good.
sorry. I thought you were saying something else entirely. I don't. I must have got disconnected for a minute or something.
Yeah,
Oh well.
Fighting
But yeah,
Street.
no, the first one it is very generic looking. That's for sure.
Yeah, and
It's
you
bad.
jump 20 feet in the air and
Mm,
stuff. Nothing like Street Fighter 2. I guess
no.
Street
No,
Fighter
like
2 really like nailed all of the elements of what became modern fighting games.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
well, I look at Street Fighter 2 and I look at the first game and I just wonder like what happened that they completely, you know, redid the whole like the art style alone is completely different and so much better.
I
Worlds away
either
better.
the only thing I can think of is that they either completely changed the creative team, or the creative team just like had a moment of, "Oh my god, what the hell were we thinking?"
Yes.
That's the only
That
thing I
might have
can
been
think of.
part of it.
Yeah, or maybe it was a mixture of both. Who knows?
Or maybe the first one was made by like two guys and then
Oh yeah,
Street
that's
Fighter
fun.
2 came along. Yeah.
They actually had a
But,
budget
but
that time.
right, was the first game like was that successful enough for them to be like we got to make a 2
You
and
know, you'd be surprised how many games, movies, or whatever that have first installments that aren't exactly hits or like at the very least break even, but they still go ahead and greenlight another one because they
yeah.
think there might be some kind of potential in it.
Yeah, there's a lot of video game sequels that are way better than the first game,
Oh,
definitely.
no
Mhm.
doubt.
Like Mega
I
Man
would,
2.
yeah. It's not like a lot of people give movies a lot of crap because part two is never as good as part one. But with video games, it's completely different because gameplay elements evolve, they change, graphics improve. So generally speaking, if the sequel is not better than the first one, the developer's done something really, really wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Street Fighter 2 was pretty cool. Capcom made Final Fight before that, believe it or not. So I wonder if they made the original Street Fighter, then made Final Fight, and then that's what was the catalyst for them to create Street Fighter 2. You know what I mean?
It's possible.
Yeah,
Like, we
because
would
the
have
art
to.
style is very similar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the weird thing too is that with Final Fight and Street Fighter, like those worlds are definitely intersected because you'll have characters, cross over every now and then, into Street Fighter or, one of the Capcom, versus games or something like that.
Mhm.
Which is pretty fun to see. You'll see like Hagar, the mayor from Final Fight, just show up every now and then. You're like, oh yeah, right, he was the mayor, which was pretty fun. Especially as a kid, you're like, oh, it's the same world. It was super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you see like Chun-Li in the background of Final Fight.
Yeah,
eating
right.
noodles.
Right. And you're like,
Just
oh
watching
wow.
just watching everybody beat the crap out of each other and not joining in. Just.
Well, she knows she could kick all their asses.
Yeah.
He has nothing to prove.
She's
Yeah.
got a tournament to prepare for, so
Gotta eat those noodles.
Here's a
eat
question
them
though for you.
noodles.
Do any of you actually know what Street Fighter is about? I have no
Yeah.
idea.
They fight each other
It's
and
a
try to be
tournament.
the best in the world.
But what's the tournament about? Is it one of those
Fighting
like
tournament.
Enter the Dragon kind of things where the bad guy is secretly a coke dealer or something? I really don't know. That's why I'm asking.
It's a tournament, and then they travel to places like USSR and Japan and China. That's about all I know. That's all I know about the game.
Okay, because I really don't know if there's a plot. So that's maybe there's not. I don't know.
I think back then the plot was like, hey, Ryu's really awesome because he does the Hadouken thing, and that was really all you needed back then.
I guess that goes to show you how little effort was put into the plots back then, or how little we cared.
The same with Tekken, right? Because like Tekken was just, hey, there's a tournament, and then like when you finish it, you get these little cutscenes that have like nothing to do with any overarching
Right.
story. I think they started putting story in like Tekken 3 or something.
I know that as far as plot goes, there was actually sort of a storyline in the first Mortal Kombat game. That was like the first to really try to actually put a more complicated plot involved in it.
Is there?
Yeah, no, because like the whole thing. Oh, yeah, no, I kind of turned into an expert on this when I was a kid. But no, there's the plot of them having to like the Shaolin monks or whoever guarding Earth in the form of a weird tournament or whatever from like Shao Kahn, Shang Tsung, and all that. That was always there. It was like in the intro, and it was in like the final, like the ending, so to speak, of each of the characters' thing.
Well, it's because they fashioned that to be like old kung fu movies, right? That was sort of like the inspiration for that.
It's all based on Enter the Dragon, which was a Bruce Lee movie that kind of had a similar plot where you had Bruce Lee infiltrating this. It was actually on an island. The guy who was like sponsoring the whole thing was like a heroin dealer or something like that. He teams up with this cop who's the guy from Nightmare on Elm Street. How do I know all this? I don't know. It's the stuff you accumulate over the years, I guess. But that was basically provided the formula for all fighter games to come, and that always involves some weird tournament, bad fighters, good fighters, guy who's sponsoring it who's up to no good.
Yeah, sounds about right. Nailed it.
And that's from Enter the Dragon, believe it or not.
Wow, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
Well,
I was gonna say Bruce Lee probably did a total of maybe 5 good movies while he was still alive. May he rest in peace. But his influence was still massive.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's Bruce Lee. Everybody knows who Bruce Lee is.
Mm-hmm.
He's that guy from those car insurance commercials, right?
Wasn't he the guy Brad Pitt, whose ass Brad Pitt kicked in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah. Apparently very, very controversial to certain people.
Apparently it was. I actually haven't seen that movie yet.
I haven't seen it yet either, but when I heard about the scene, I was like, people are really taking this that seriously? Really?
They are.
It's a movie.
Let's
settle down.
It's also a Quentin Tarantino movie, so like everyone's a hyper parody of themselves, basically.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do they not get this? But whatever. Everyone's sensitive. Anyway.
So one thing that's awesome about the 90s was video stores.
Yes, we have to talk about video stores.
Yes.
So
AJ, let's talk about video stores.
I could talk about video stores.
Okay, Trey, let's talk about video stores.
Hey, what about me?
AJ, Trey, let's
Yes.
talk about video stores.
That
Okay.
sounds good to me. So for me, nearest one to me was a thing called Hollywood Video. Do either of you guys know what that is?
Oh yeah, we had them here.
They're kind of like really when all is said and done though, they're basically the not Blockbuster.
Yeah, for the most part. But
Yeah.
Blockbuster was expensive, to be fair.
Hollywood Video was just closer to my house.
We had we never went to like the name brand places. We never went to Hollywood Video. We never went to Blockbuster. We would go to the ones that's like down the street. That's like a mom and pop owned place.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
like it'd be like Jones's Video or some crap like that. But yes, video stores were so amazing in the 90s. For all the younger kids out there, at video stores, you had video games and movies on a rack that you got to look at and go like, I think this will be good. And
Did
then
you
you
ever
rent it
think
and
that
take a
you'd be
chance.
actually describing this to people as if it's a relic
Oh.
from the past?
I've thought about this because I mentioned before the show that, I have my son now who's just about 4 months. And when he's old enough, I'm going to have to be like, when I was a kid, I had to go to a store, and he'll be like, "Shut up! This didn't happen."
Well,
This didn't happen.
actually,
There's,
I read something that the generation growing up now actually prefers going to stores than buying stuff online. It's people our age that are like ruining it. So I think in the
I believe it,
future,
yeah.
I think in the future things like that will come back. I hope they do. I mean, I love going to stores and browsing and talking. Oh, hey, what movie do you recommend or whatever? Like that's fun. It's a lot more fun than like just going on some streaming service or something.
I would agree with that.
But yeah, like
I do
what?
Go ahead. I was going to start reminiscing about video
Oh.
stores too. Go ahead. Go on.
I just wanted to
I'm
say
bringing
in
out my
the
cane, so I'm just like, when I was a boy.
I grew up in a smallish town in Western Canada.
So that's the side that's closer to California.
I don't know. I guess so.
Technically,
It's
yes.
closer to British Columbia. Anywho, any hoozles. We didn't have we didn't have Blockbuster. Like that came in like the 2000s or something because like we just that wasn't a thing here. That caught on later. Same with Walmart and stuff. Like I don't remember Walmart when I was a kid.
I'll be glad you don't have it or didn't have it.
Yeah. And so there was only like independent video stores. Like they were chains, but they weren't like big things like Blockbuster. We had one that was a pet store and they rented video games. And it was called Hanky's, I think. I don't know.
What?
Yeah, it was just a mom and pop
Yankees Pet
place.
Shop and video game rental shop.
Yeah, so I'd go in there and look at all the pets, and then I'd like rent a NES game for $1 a day. It was a lot of fun. We also had like 5-Star Video and Video Headquarters and stuff like that. We had maybe like 6 video stores in the small town, and over the years they just very slowly dried up. Then we got like a Blockbuster, and that closed down, and now there's no video stores anywhere. It's pretty sad.
We used to do Friday night video store and pizza night. So it was like
That sounds
the place
awesome.
that we went to. It was great. It was great. My parents invented this. I don't care what anyone says, but every Friday night we would pick up crappy pizza from somewhere, which was delicious. I love all pizza, no matter how crappy. But they also used to do this deal at this video store we went to. I think it was like you could pick 5 for $5, and they had certain racks that were okay that you could pick for $5.
Hmm.
But of course, you couldn't pick off the new release rack or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, we would usually pick like 3 movies or 4 movies and one or two NES games. And that was the weekend. The weekend was like basically Saturday morning was like, I'm going to watch Saturday morning cartoons
Hmm.
and I'm going to eat leftover cold pizza and I'm going to go play my NES game. It was great. It
Yeah,
was awesome.
that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
So for me, well, I was just definitely have some similar memories to that. The vast majority of like a lot of the early games I was exposed to came from Hollywood videos and blockbusters too. Um, and for example, that's where I started playing Star Fox 64, and that's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
my all-time favorite game on the N64. To tell you the truth,
It's a good one.
it never found its way back to the store.
Yeah,
Wait a
that's one
minute.
thing that that Blockbuster started doing before they closed down is they would say, if you rent a game and you like it, you could just keep it and just pay like this small fee or something. Did they do
They
that
this
there?
Supposedly, yeah, they did. Supposedly, they were going to charge you the price of it. They started doing another thing where they were trying to do their own thing, but also do the Netflix thing where they would send the DVDs to you, and just none of it ever caught on,
Because
unfortunately.
I
Like, they just could not compete.
remember renting like PS2 games, and they'd be like, okay, if you like it and you want to keep it, it's only going to be like $18. And so a lot of the
Hmm.
times I would rent a game. Then if I liked it, I'd just be like, yeah, I'll pay that. It's way cheaper than it costs it, brand new. So
Hmm.
just ended up doing that a lot. Um,
Hmm.
one time, like when I was maybe 11 or something, I went to a video store at the first day of spring break, which was I think 2 weeks or no, one week, and I rented Yoshi's Island, and I was like, I want this for the next 9 days, and the clerk was like, what? Like, why? Because it was like one day for $2, and then each day after that $1. So it's like, well, I want to
Hmm.
play and finish Yoshi's Island, right, on my spring break. Yeah, I don't know. That's just a that's just a silly memory that I
That's
think
funny.
fondly back on. Can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
No, unfortunate. The thing you were talking about earlier about the younger generation wanting to rent videos and stuff like that, I feel like it's one of those, come full circle situations where, like, I feel like we, at our age now, really enjoy the digital aspect of it because we already lived through that. And it's like, the hassle of like, okay, now I got to go over to the store and pick a thing and come back and
Hmm.
put it in the machine and blah, blah, blah. It's quaint for younger generations now.
Yeah.
Putting on vinyl is quaint, but like
Hmm.
nowadays, like when we were kids and we are putting on vinyl or popping a cartridge in or having to go to the store to do a thing, but once you got a taste of like this digital age that we're in now, at least for me, I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to go back.
I I will say that I do not have a problem going to like a GameStop or whatever to buy a video game.
Sure.
Um, that is not a problem for me. I will say though that especially at least when it comes to PC games, I definitely prefer just going to Steam and getting it on there because they always have really good deals. Most of it's through that anyway, so it's not really a problem. Um, I do have some current concerns regarding how certain publishers are constantly pushing for digital, and I would very much like sort of like those kind of stores, video stores, and all that to make a comeback to potentially combat that because
Yeah,
I don't like the direction it's going in, and it makes me very nervous.
I have a question for you guys. That you know brings up an important question.
Sure.
When digital stuff first like started becoming a thing, did you look at the prices of games on digital stores and think, why is this the same price as a physical copy in the store?
Well,
Oh
no,
yeah.
because no, because it wasn't originally that price. It was always usually about $10 cheaper.
Oh, well, like I'm talking like PS3 and stuff like that. Like
As I
that's when I was.
recall, like at least on PC, they always seem to be about $10 or so cheaper.
Oh,
They always seem to be a little bit cheaper than on at least on PC anyway than they were on consoles.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't know
on
that.
PC,
Like
PC for a time it was.
I started with
Yeah.
the digital gaming with the PS3,
Okay.
and when I would look at the store, I'd see like, oh, this game is $60, but it's $60 at EB
Yep.
Games. Why wouldn't
Yeah,
I go to the
it's
store and buy it? I get a physical copy. I would much rather do that. So I
the
was
only
completely off digital games like from day one because it just made no sense to me. I
I
mean,
agree with
now
that completely.
now that I'm like running the site and doing that,
It's necessary.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously I get codes for games, and so I
Mhm.
download them. Um, but yeah, one thing that is coming back is physical media. Like if you look at a lot of these indie games, they're coming out with like box sets that have all these like trinkets and stuff in them, and I think that's great. It's really bringing back physical like collector's items.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean you pay a premium for it, of course, but if you want to support the developers and like get a treasure trove of fun things, you could just totally do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree. For me, physical media stuff is kind of out because I'm really only buying physicals of things that I really enjoy or want. Old movies that I know that I cherish and everything like that. But nowadays, when it comes to games, I pretty much gone all digital. I don't really want to buy any more collector's editions with like, yeah, it includes, like what was that big Mortal Kombat one where the guy was like ripping the other guy's head
It's
off
like
or
it was like
whatever it
the
was.
scorpion statue or something like that.
Yeah, and I was just like, why would I would never put this up anywhere. Like but I
No,
was like, okay, this is for like the guy who's like 18 and he just moved out and he's at college and he's like, check out my fucking rad scorpion statue.
you're not wrong.
And
You're not wrong. Um,
it's just not for me.
Want to
So
I like
impress all
um
the boys at the frat or something.
right. Dude, get this. Barry knocked over my scorpion statue. Fucking broke it, man.
Whatever, we got a caker tonight. All right.
that was
But yeah,
actually
that's how it
one.
is for me anyway.
That's fair. I just for me though, like if the death of physical does come, it's well, it'll cost me my job first of all because I do have a day job at like I said, a GameStop or EB Games or whatever you want to call it. Um,
Mhm.
and you listen to a lot of people say like they want to go, they go digital, but it's usually for the dumbest reasons. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I have heard somebody say they go digital because apparently taking out a game out of the PS4 and putting another one in is too much effort. I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
You're like, really?
It's just I don't say that, but it's just like, okay. And I'm just thinking to myself, just give it. I in my mind I had this like 1,000 yard stare at them because I'm not actually putting that on my face because otherwise that I'm probably gonna get punched in all honesty, but I'm just thinking to myself, how far away is your couch from your PS4? Is it like on the other side of the house? Do you have like a home theater system that actually makes it harder to put in? Like what is the reasoning here?
Yeah, one of the
It-
reasons used to be that if you had like a physical thing, it wouldn't take up as much hard drive space. But now, if you put in a Blu-ray into the PS4, it still installs like
It does,
70
but
gig.
like,
that has more
yeah,
to do with
right.
that has more to do though. If I've been told with actual like publisher and development costs and things like that. It's like apparently there is some kind of scheme going on with a lot of developers where they want the game to take up as much memory as possible, so you can only put that game on your console. So it's going to make it a bit more of an exclusivity thing.
What? I don't get
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's this weird. I'm not sure. This might just be some like tinfoil hat stuff, but some people have theorized that's something that they're doing because they want you to only be able to install like this game onto your console, like and only play this game with its DLC sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how. I'm not sure how much merit there is to that. I very much doubt it's what they're thinking when they develop these things, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was true, though.
One thing that I think is funny is that if you have like an original model Wii U,
Hmm.
and you buy Metroid Prime Trilogy like on the eShop,
Hmm.
you can't install it because it takes up more space than the internal memory on the Wii U to have.
I'm not
Right.
surprised by that at all, to tell you the
So you
truth.
need to have a Wii U Deluxe to play it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but anywho, this is so not 90s.
No, it's not. It's just
Well,
I think I feel like this is almost like the reminiscing of three men who are approaching middle age, just talking about how much better things were when we were young, or something like that.
Yeah, that's the whole
oh
point of it.
no,
That's awesome.
Forgetting, I
no,
think.
Things were
Hmm?
awesome, and now they're
Hmm.
not so awesome.
Ah,
I don't know, man. Things were awesome, and as far as games are concerned, nowadays things are still pretty awesome. Like every year, there's so many games that come out that I
this
love.
is
So
true.
Yeah,
yeah,
I just last year I would the new God of War game came out, and I would still say that's probably one of the best games ever made.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty damn good, right?
Mhm.
But one thing you guys were talking about, though, that was definitely not a part of the console experience in the '90s, though, was installing patches and DLC. So,
That was
yeah,
always a pain in the ass back in the day. I've been told. I never did it because I was like I could barely, I could barely pee standing at that point. But apparently, patches you'd have to like make like 8 phone calls and then actually connect it to the internet and or get an extra disc
do
and
you mean with
oh well,
PC
that's
games?
if you had PC, but if you had a
Yeah,
console,
I
oh,
think you were
yeah,
screwed.
yeah, there's you get a broken SNES game and you're playing it and you're like, huh, why does the guy do the thing here? Why does he keep falling through the floor? That's because that's the final game. Like there's no fixing that. It's just
Hmm.
that's what it is.
yeah, but
And
the
it
plus
sucks.
side of that is that developers actually cared.
Mm,
Now they don't. They release buggy games all the time because they could always patch it. But back in the day, developers would try their best to release a complete product that wasn't a buggy mess. Um,
well,
yeah.
going this actually
Huh?
is sort of a 90s thing as well as an 80s thing, really. How familiar are you two guys with the Ultima series?
Not at all.
Nope.
Okay. It's kind of the OG RPG series when all is said and done.
Yeah.
Like it was made by a guy named Richard Garriott, who made like the first game basically on on his dad's computer, basically. And then it turned to a big franchise that actually it's like I said, they made like a bunch of installments for this. I think there were like 20 games they made total for it. That's not including expansions for them and spin-offs and all that jazz. But one thing that happened to this guy was that, or this company, I should say, is that they got bought out by EA. And the moment they were taken over by EA, that's when the problem started.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, so as much as you might say that, they put their all into it, this and that didn't always happen either, because sometimes publisher mandate would always force them to rush the game out, and you put something like Ultima 9, which was complete dog shit,
Yeah,
or
but
Ultima
I'm
8
I'm
as well.
talking more about like console games and that like
Mm,
once you made a cartridge, like that was it. You couldn't update it, you couldn't patch it or
no, that's
anything.
true. The
Um,
point is, though, well, my point basically was, though, is that the problems that do plague us today still have been going on literally since the start. Oh,
yeah, but
ET. Enough
developers
said.
don't really put as much focus on releasing completed and glitch free things nowadays.
Well,
Um,
there's a really this is going a little off track. Have either one of you read Jurassic Park, the original novel?
nope.
I
Okay.
love the movie.
Well, okay. So Dennis, the heavyset guy who like betrays everyone or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, they go a little
Spoiler
bit
alert.
deeper. Well, in the novel, they go a little bit more deeper into like why he actually did this. How Hammond was kind of fucking him over, and like to a certain extent, the company did kind of deserve what went down to it. People obviously didn't deserve to die, but it definitely seemed like Hammond. He's a much different person in the book. Let's just put it that way. But one of the things that he brings up is that his company, which was contracted to do the IT for it, the initial stuff they set up was like riddled with bugs, more or less. And one of the things that he brings up is that it doesn't matter how good your program is, how good, of a job you do, there's always still going to be a glitch here and there. Like, it doesn't matter how much money or effort you put into it, there's always going to be flaws.
Oh yeah, for
Now,
sure.
granted, Dennis in this was probably being lazy and greedy given his character, but that's sort of a way of thinking you can always apply to video games. It doesn't matter how good the thing turns out, no matter how much effort they put in, no matter how much money they have to throw at it, there's always going to be bugs.
Yeah, but like, Final Fantasy 3 or 6 or whatever you want to call it on SNES actually had some some pretty huge bugs in it. I think it's the evasion stat
Mhm.
has absolutely no impact on anything. I think it even has the opposite effect that it should have. But people still love that game, and it's a classic game, and it's still an amazing game. But like nowadays, you would see a game released that's basically half done, and then they just patch it, and it might become good like after 2 or 3 years or something. But like, in the first place, they release it like full release, not even beta, and it's just it's just a glitch filled mess, right?
I don't entirely
Yeah.
agree with that because if you do stuff, if that was a lot more common, like I feel like it was a lot more common 5, 6 years ago than it is now. Like if you pull that off now, it just your game is going to become an instant pariah.
I don't know what that word means.
I think it's the leader of Egypt.
Oh
Ha
yeah.
ha ha! Something that's a point of mock and ridicule
Oh yeah. Well,
to
a
the
lot of
individual.
games are, right. A lot of games come out now, and they are like that one that you reviewed. What's it called?
Ghost Recon.
Tom Clancy's video game number 79.
Oh
Yes.
my
That one.
god!
Better than
Yeah.
76, but still not that great.
Yeah, there's still a
Mm,
lot of games that come out now that are just completely mocked because they just were crap when they
you're
released.
not wrong. You're not wrong on that front, but I'm not entirely willing to say it was much better in this decade than it is now. I think that's the only point I really will disagree with you on
Hmm.
in that
Well,
regards.
I will say this. I think that this is a great topic for a future episode. We could talk about gaming decades and that kind of thing, which I think would be great.
Hmm.
Um, but we are almost at a 2 hour mark here, guys. So
Yay.
give everybody a chance here to kind of like, because this episode was definitely all over the place, and I don't
It
mean just
was.
90s wise, but it's still fun to listen to. Don't get me wrong; it's good stuff. But AJ, let's start with you. Like, what are you have anything left from the 90s that we didn't get to that you definitely want to mention real quick?
Hmm. There's a lot of things. I don't know. I thought memory cards were pretty annoying.
No kidding, right?
I will say this much. On my first PlayStation, we never had a memory card,
Oh, really? You just
so
had to
I
play
would
Final
literally have to
Fantasy 7 in one
I would
go.
literally have to restart these games every time I played them. It was ridiculous.
Hmm.
Then one day my cat knocked a wire loose when I was like halfway through Spyro, and I lost all that progress, and I'll never forgive that cat for that.
You played Spyro without a memory card?
I played Spyro without a memory card.
Oh,
Ripto's Rage, to be
I had a
exact.
friend back in the day who he just left his NES on like 24/7. Like he would
Oh
play
my god.
Super Mario Brothers 3 for like a few hours or whatever. Or that's too long. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and then he'd just leave it on overnight and then just pick it up the next day and
Mm.
keep playing. And I would be like, you're gonna break your NES. Like, what are you doing? Just leaving
Yeah,
it
what are you
on?
doing?
I guess that's like people who leave their computers on all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. This seems more dangerous than that. Leaving a console on?
That, that was just sleep mode back in the day. That's all that was.
Left it on. Yeah. I guess there was no save files or anything for Mario. No passwords or anything. Isn't that weird that like three of the coolest games ever, Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3, didn't have any way to continue your game?
and all were good.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, seriously, think about it. 3 of the best games ever. So much fun. You had to start from the beginning every time you turned on the console.
You know, the only one that really needed it was probably 3, because 3 had a lot of worlds, a lot of levels.
Oh, 2 did too.
Much more like Mario World. I guess that's true. 2 did too.
Yeah, and one
But I mean,
one had 8 worlds, so I guess you could finish it in one sitting, but take a long time, wouldn't it? I don't know.
nah. I mean, if you wanted to play through every single level, but if you knew the warps, I mean, you could finish that game in 5 minutes. So.
Oh yeah, warps. Those were
Warps,
those
baby.
were the memory cards, passwords of the Mario games.
Yeah, they
Warp
really were.
pipes.
Mario. Trey, how about you? Parting 90s memories or thoughts?
I think that's actually about it for me. Oh, there's one. Super Smash Brothers.
Super Smash Brothers. What a
Yeah.
classic, huh?
Late 90s period, but still the 90s. But I remember just specifically, could not get into the new one, Ultimate, because it just wasn't the same as playing the original one. Like, that game was that basically Super Smash Brothers to me, just like 4 friends, like the 4 of us sitting on a couch, all with our own controllers, beating the crap out of each other in a big tournament. Me basically being Fox, kicking the shit out of everybody, getting the shit kicked out of me, and my brother constantly being Kirby and beating the crap out of all of us because Kirby is a cheap motherfucker.
And
I can't disagree.
You
Yeah,
get
but that's
12
that's
whole
my
characters
big.
too.
Say what?
Get a whole 12 characters in that game.
You know, at the
Was
time,
it that
though,
high?
I don't remember what it was. Probably.
Yeah, there was
But
8, and then you unlock 4 of them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But at the time, there really wasn't anything else quite like it. But that's one bit of 90s memories that that I'm never gonna get back.
It's true.
Oh,
It's like I can. Everything else, like Pokemon, Star Fox, all that can be recreated. That moment in my lifetime, that is something that will never be the same again.
breaking my heart.
Mm,
Oh,
It's bittersweet, though.
we're all
Yeah.
gonna
It was a
cry
good
at the
time.
end. At the end of this podcast.
yeah, now I'm getting all nostalgic over here. I'm just thinking about stuff now.
Quick, RC, end
I
this. End our pain.
Well, I was just going to say, though, I think that's sort of the point, though, is, talking about 90s gaming memories, though, it is nostalgic, and it is sort of all about romancing your time, back then, because, all 3 of us, even though different ages, were kids at the time. So it was an amazing time to discover video games because they were coming up into what they are now. And to have lived through an era where, your favorite hobby was, you could say it was a adolescent, just like we were, because gaming, even though it started way back in the day, it didn't really gain footing until the 80s, late 70s, I suppose, with arcades and stuff like that. But man, there's so many great things about the 90s and so many terrible things about the 90s when it comes to gaming. And all of it is so fun to remember,
Hey, did you guys ever go to garage sales with your mums?
My grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
That's something I remember from the 90s.
Oh,
Just
God.
driving around all the surrounding towns and going to garage sales, picking up NES games for $1, playing Game Boy in the back seat. Man, those were the days.
Well, I guess I could end this with a 90s memory. It's actually I suppose, a 90s memory that happened in the 2000s, because at the time I was dating this girl who had some neighbors across the street who had a garage sale. And believe it or not, they were selling an NES, and they were selling an NES with a couple of games for like $10. And she picked it up for me. That woman, I'm surprised I did not marry, just because she knew to like just buy that on the spot and say, yes, my boyfriend would like this. $10. Here you go.
But your current wife got you a GameCube.
No, she did not.
Just saying. That would make sense.
No, she did not. But we are going to have words after this, me and her.
What?
But
I don't like where this is going.
It's getting real. Okay, AJ. No, but that Nintendo came with a couple of games. You want to guess one of the games? It's a classic.
Castlevania.
Blaster Master.
Nope. It was Top
Wait.
fucking Gun. That's
Oh.
right. Top Gun.
Did you ever land the plane on the aircraft carrier?
No.
Oh god.
No one could.
Danger
What
zone.
was the other game?
I think it was one of the shoot 'em up playing games, like 1942 or something like that. A much better game.
So this person must have really liked planes.
Yeah, I'm thinking that is the case.
Was it an amicable breakup? That's all I really want to know now.
Oh, back then. Oh man, I don't know if we should get into this, but
Valid.
you know, things worked out fine.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming on the show to chat.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun.
Mm-hmm.
AJ, of course, we could find your website, videochums.com. There's also a YouTube channel titled Video Chums, which I do Let's Plays on every now and then. Trey, I know that you write on Video Chums as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And do you have anywhere else you would like to plug, sir?
The Nerd Hub, which I do a lot of comic book related stuff on. That unfortunately is not up right now. To be continued on that one. I also do a lot of work on heroichollywood.com. Just Google my name. Just Google Heroic Hollywood, my name. You'll see that.
Cool.
Yep.
Sounds awesome. You want to tell them what GameStop you work at, or
They don't need to know that. They
No.
don't need to know that.
They do
could
not need to know
come
that.
in and beat you up for your opinions.
If they come in and beat up my opinion, I'm going to take a Fortnite Nerf gun. I'm going to shoot them with it, and they're going to be very confused as to what just happened. They're going to be shot with a Fortnite Nerf gun.
Nerf dart to the head.
Nerf
That
dart
sounds
to the
fun.
head. They will not know what hit them. Literally, they'll be confused.
They'll be mildly annoyed for seconds.
Mildly annoyed before I just book outside. They'll buy me the
They'll
time
be-
we need.
They'll be more annoyed that it was a Fortnite dart, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, what hit me? Oh, Fortnite! Ugh!